I'm experienced.
Kiss the ring, motherfucker.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of 3 Rounds with Daniel Cormier. On this show weekly, I'm going to go 15 minutes on the biggest stories in mixed martial arts. Now, I'm a guy that's been the story for a long time, so I'm excited to discuss them with you and be able to have opinions that are very strong. Some you'll agree with, some you won't, but one thing you will do, or one thing I'm happy that you guys are going to do, is join me on this journey. So, anything going on in mixed martial arts, come here to my YouTube channel to find out and discuss them with me.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
Round 1. TJ Dillashaw fires back at Aljamain Sterling for saying he doesn't believe that he's a clean athlete, saying, quote, "He's got to say something to downplay how good I am." Dillashaw told that to MMA Junkie last week. "I'm going to whip his ass coming up soon, in about 10 weeks. He's got to make some sort of excuse as to why I'm winning or who I am and why I am who I am." He said it doesn't bother him. It's just a bunch of bullshit excuses so that when he beats Aljo's ass, he's going to be like, "See, I told you." Guys, these two are fighting at UFC 280 for the Bantamweight Championship. Dillashaw, the former champ, Sterling, the current champ in Abu Dhabi. And when you look at some of the past performances, especially the one that Aljamain Sterling put on Petr Yan, in order to truly stake his claim to being the champion of the world, you have to be thoroughly impressed with who he is. TJ Dillashaw returned after that 2-year suspension to beat Corey Sandhagen. But right after the Sandhagen fight, he had to have knee surgery. This is a great matchup, and when you think about it, a lot of the back and forth is okay. But TJ Dillashaw said that he doesn't necessarily like to get into the reality TV shit, but I believe that this fight does need a little something more on it. And the bad blood will only help in trying to get people to pay attention, especially in the bantamweight division that is absolutely on fire right now, with Chito Vera looking as good as he's looked recently. Petr Yan, the former champion, who did lose to Aljo, but still is one of the most dangerous guys in the division, and he's fighting Sean O'Malley, a guy that if he wins, Sean O'Malley can throw a wrench in everything that the bantamweight division has planned, even the returning former champion, the double champ, Henry Cejudo. So when you think about Aljo and TJ Dillashaw, and you think about TJ Dillashaw and the things that he's done over the course of his career, he has been fantastic. I was there on the night that he won the championship against Renan Barão. I fought on that card in the co-main event to TJ Dillashaw against Dan Henderson. And in the build-up, many forget how Renan Barão was viewed at that time as the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, unbeatable, another one of those guys from Shoot the Box. Another one of those guys from where Jose Aldo trains with Coach Andre Pederneiras. And we just had saw him win and win and win and win. And you didn't think that this guy from Alpha Male, this young up-and-coming bantamweight, really had a chance to beat Renan Barão. But Dillashaw goes out there and he dominates him. It doesn't even look close. Dillashaw wiped him out, and then he did it again in Chicago. So watching him has really proven to be something very special. I believe that he's one of the best bantamweights of all time, second only to Dominic Cruz. I still believe Dominic is the greatest bantamweight of all time. But I do think that Dillashaw has closed in on him. Unfortunately, the suspension, the drugs, all that other stuff really does play a part. But when Aljo says, "I don't think he's a clean athlete," TJ, how could you possibly be upset about that? You just served a 2-year suspension. I don't believe that because the time is served, you forget about everything. Last week, and I spoke to Calvin Kattar about this, and Calvin Kattar goes, "You forgive, but you never forget." Because again, all the accomplishments are brought into question whenever a guy has to serve 2 years away from the game in his prime because he failed a steroid test for something that has been proven time and time again to be a steroid and a performance-enhancing steroid. And if you believe that today people are not using steroids because of USADA, although USADA has done a great job of cleaning up the sport, I want to sell you a house $5,000 for a 4,000 square foot McMansion in California. Give me your $5,000. At some point, I'll give you that McMansion in California. You're out of your mind and you're naive. There are steroids, guys, that only live in your system for a very short period of time. Some as short as 4 hours. USADA can be a bit routine at times. I always knew that when I got a fight announced, USADA was going to visit me at some point. I always knew that when they did visit me, it was usually on Monday morning. So if these guys start to play when USADA's coming, there are opportunities to still cheat the system. So I am not surprised Aljo doesn't think he's a clean fighter, because guess what? It has been proven that you aren't. You got to be very, very careful in regards to getting upset about something that is proven to be the truth as we get to the 10 seconds of round one. UFC 280 is going to be fantastic from the desert. Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw is going to be great. Make sure you tune in.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
Round two, guys. Nate Diaz fights Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 279 in the main event, which may be Nate Diaz's final fight in the UFC. You know, when I think about Nathan Diaz, I think about a guy that has just fought everyone. So when I hear that this is a hit job by the UFC to try and send Diaz out on a loss, I can't imagine for a second that Diaz sees this that way at all. You got to understand who Nate Diaz is at his core. Nate Diaz is a guy that's always fought anyone, anytime. Go back to even in the early days after he won the Ultimate Fighter. He has fought whoever was put in front of him. And there was no like cannon fodder for Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz fought anybody. And Nate Diaz fought a lot of the best guys of his era. So when you think about him versus Khamzat Chimaev, while on paper, it looks like a massive mismatch. So did the fight when he took on Conor McGregor on very short notice. Everybody thought that they picked Nathan Diaz because they figured Conor would beat him, knock him out, and then move on. But what did Diaz do? Diaz went out there, Diaz got him down and submitted him. Diaz held his own on his feet, and Diaz has now set up what could have been one of the biggest trilogies in UFC history. Unfortunately, it does not feel like we're ever going to see that from Nathan Diaz, because I feel like he's going to move on. And even in our conversations, Nate says some crazy stuff when you talk to him or text him. I once asked Nate for an interview, and Nate told me he couldn't. And I'm not going to tell you why he said he couldn't, because it was a bit crazy. It was true to Nate Diaz and who he is. But he goes, DC, I can't have you in my city right now doing this, this, and the other, which was absolutely insane. But Nate's always been a gentleman to me, and Nate's always been a guy that steps up. Nate Diaz has to fight Francis Ngannou. And if you think for 1 second he wouldn't, dudes in Stockton are different. That whole area of Northern California, is different. They don't think like normal people think. They don't process fear like other people process fear. So when you see Khamzat Chimaev and most go, wow, this dude's scary, this dude's dangerous, Nate Diaz doesn't see that. Nate Diaz sees just another guy. So that's why when they offered it to him, the fight that he wanted, he goes, hell yeah, I'm in, I'm down. In the most classic Nate Diaz way, he probably flipped off the UFC and said, fuck y'all, I'm good. I'll take the fight, because that's what he does. Nate Diaz is a savage, man, and that dude's going to go out there and try to upset the apple cart, as they say, as Khamzat Chimaev is one of the rising stars in the UFC. Dude's 11-0 overall, 5-0 in the UFC. He's ranked number 3 in the world now. Only reason he's number 3 is because now Kamaru Usman moves down to the number 1 ranked welterweight in the world. Covington goes to 2, Chimaev goes to 3. He's been a dominant force in his UFC career. He's only been there for 2 years. I mean, he's a mauling savage that's made some really good fighters look very amateur. He has done things that Li Jingliang fight was in Abu Dhabi was the craziest thing that I've ever been a part of as a broadcaster before last weekend, honestly. He picked him up, the number 9 ranked guy in the world, walked him over to Dana, threw him down, spoke to Dana, and then submitted him. Crazy. Then he beats Gilbert Burns to put himself in position for a championship. But I think last weekend he did not understand that he was the biggest loser in the Usman versus Leon situation, because he was in line. All he had to do was get past Diaz. All he had to do, get past Diaz. You fight for a championship. But with Leon Edwards winning now we got a trilogy. And rightfully so. So then that leads to the question, what is this fight for? I feel like for Diaz, this fight's for legacy. I feel like for Chimaev, this is just another scalp on his resume. Because I don't know if this win necessarily puts him closer than he already is to a championship fight. And because of the result last weekend, he'll need one more. I just wonder who that one more is going to come against. Does he beat Diaz? Or if he beats Diaz, does he get Covington next? What happens if Nate Diaz wins? As Nate Diaz walks to the octagon at the T-Mobile Arena for UFC 279, every thought in his mind will be that he will win that fight. You guys better make sure you tune in. Because Nate Diaz, once again, is trying to ruin all the plans. And I'm telling you, I'm very excited for September 10th to be right next to the octagon.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
As we head into round 3, I want to take a look at UFC 280. I mean, I'm sitting at that broadcast table on Saturday night, and they start to run some of the fights that are going to happen at UFC 280. And at Asanya versus Pena, we know that when these two are put together, guaranteed to fight, right? 2 kickboxing matches where Pena was victorious on both occasions. One, putting the champ Israel Adesanya to sleep. Here's the thing, though. I believe that in a mixed martial arts contest, Israel Adesanya still has to be considered the favorite because he has been through the things that make you a champion in mixed martial arts. He has had to deal with being held up against the octagon clinched by Marvin Vettori. He has had to deal with being taken down or trying to defend takedowns over the course of a long fight against Derek Brunson. He has stood in front of some of the best fighters in the world in mixed martial arts. And I believe that ultimately that is going to be one of the issues in which Pena has to deal with. But how can you not believe that Pena has a chance in this fight based on the results prior, but also based on the fact that he's training with Glover Teixeira, who once again is challenging for the light heavyweight championship of the world? If Izzy's felt power in terms of grappling, he has never felt anything like Glover Teixeira. Even today, when I come up to Glover, we always kind of come together and clinch. And I'm like, this dude is strong. And maybe it's me and my brittle 43-year-old bones, but he feels insanely strong. Pena's dealing with that daily. So when you look at the fight, yes, give the champ the edge because of the experience inside the octagon, but by no means do you count out Alex Pena. And I talked to Izzy in Dallas. You know, I got to speak with him for a few minutes, and he was very, very, he was confident, but I think there's a lot of self-realization going on with the champion right now because he is in an area where there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of times where you reach a level and it's just you, and very few people can relate to what you're going through. One is a person that has done the things that you are doing right now. So when Izzy gets next to a guy like myself or George St. Pierre, he's opening up because he knows that we've been there. And he speaks to you in a manner that makes you really respect who the last style bender is. He's very, very self-aware, and he's very in tune with the challenge that's in front of him. I can't wait to get there. Zhang Weili gets a title shot against Carla Esparza. I thought that Carla Esparza was going to make her wait a little longer. It seemed like she was not going to fight Zhang Weili right now. It's a very difficult fight for the champion. But I'm going to tell you, man, it's time for us to stop counting out the Cookie Monster. How many times does she have to overcome the odds? How many times does she have to prove to you that she is as good as anyone in the world? She is a 2-time champion. 2. I believe one other person has ever done that, Rose Namajunas. Rose Namajunas lost the belt, won the belt back. She got beat by Jessica Andrade, beat Jessica Andrade to get a title shot again, beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk. No one else has done that but Carla Esparza. Stop disrespecting this woman. I understand when people look at Zhang Weili. They look at the explosiveness, the athleticism. I still believe it. Pound for pound, one of the greatest athletes in the world, Zhang Weili. One of the greatest athletes, regardless of gender, in the UFC, Zhang Weili. But even saying all that, do I think that Carla Esparza doesn't have a chance in this match? You'd be a fool to believe that. Third fight, rumored to be happening. Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. Come on, man. The beef that these two have makes the fight even better because they don't like each other. I mean, they were at International Fight Week trying to get at each other in the stands. Dustin Poirier acting all Lafayette, but I'm going to tell you one thing. For as perfect as Michael Chandler's life seems, he is an absolute dog. I remember him early in his career. He came in the AKA, and he was training. We were after a heavyweight named Mark Ellis, so Mike came with him. And immediately I was impressed by him and his mindset because he knew nothing. But he was willing to just get in there and mix it up with anybody. We have seen him survive crazy encounters with Eddie Alvarez all the way back to Bellator to the fight that we saw him get in with Tony Ferguson very recently. That fight card is going to be insane. And if Poirier versus Chandler is the third fight from the top, y'all better strap in. Get ready for UFC 280 from the Mecca, Madison Square Garden. It's time for my final word. My question to you is, how will the UFC remember Nate Diaz? I will remember Nate Diaz as a fighter's fighter, a guy that always answered the call, a scrawny kid from Stockton that went on The Ultimate Fighter and made a name for himself, a kid that at some point or somehow eclipsed the name of the bigger brother. That does not happen in sport. The big brother, the one that goes first, is generally the one that's remembered always. Nathan Diaz has now put himself right alongside his brother Nick. He did that through will, spirit, and determination, an ability to never give up on himself. That's how I'm going to remember Nathan Diaz if he's out of the UFC after this. I want to know how you guys are going to remember Nathan Diaz. I remember the triangle with the fingers up. I remember the submission to Conor McGregor. But there's so many other things that Nathan Diaz did over the course of his career that he should be remembered for. The very rare case where you eclipse the older brother, Nathan Diaz is one of those guys. And lastly, guys, farewell to my boy, Luke Skylar Rockhold, surfer kid from Santa Cruz that I met the first day I got to AKA and decided I hate this kid. I don't like that he's a good-looking kid. He's 6'4", and he has all the tools to be a world champion. So they said, you guys spar. We went in there and we sparred, and immediately, not only did Luke Skylar Rockhold earn my respect, Luke Rockhold became one of my best friends in the world. Because in that moment, when I'm throwing punches, looping punches that I have no idea how to throw, Luke Rockhold is standing there, pretty boy and all, throwing those same punches in the fight. We went to some unbelievable heights together. And for Luke to go out in the way that he did last weekend in Utah was truly special. Because for a long time, he was the guy in the bunch, right? Me, Khabib, Kane, where everybody loved us. Luke was kind of on the outside. On that night, he was universally loved for his heart, his spirit, and his determination. So for my friend Luke, farewell, my guy. Welcome to the ranks of the retired. And I will see you soon. Guys, until next time, like, subscribe, and make sure you tune into all my content. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for the support. Peace.